Castle, Jo Rowling sat down to discuss her personal story and how writing the last chapters of the Potter saga closed an incredible chapter in her life.
Ending this series for you, is it a relief, or is there a sense of mourning, or maybe a combination of the two?
Definitely both. A whole bundle of emotions wrapped up into one. Immediately after finishing writing, I was very hard to live. The first few days were terrible. Terrible.
In what way? Tell me what you did.
I was incredibly low. What is probably hard for people to imagine is how wrapped up this 17 years' work is with what was going on in my life at the time.
Her often-told life story sounds almost as magical as the books she conjured up. But what's not as well known is the magic was tempered by sorrow and loss, which played a key role in the creation of the Harry Potter books. In a foreshadowing of events in her own life, her parents met and got engaged on a train traveling through the English countryside. And Joanne Rowling was born in a village in the west of England 42 years ago this week. Her father, Peter, was a factory manager. Her mother, Anne, a lab technician. As a little girl, Jo amused herself and her little sister, Di, with early attempts at hair-raising stories.
I wrote this little book about a rabbit called Rabbit and his adventures, and I illustrated it myself too, and showed it to my mother, who, as mothers do, was rhapsodized and said how wonderful it was. And what's interesting to me is I was 6 years old, and I thought, well, are we going to get it published? I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Fast forward 20 years to 1990, and Jo Rowling came up with a very different type of story. She had been visiting a boyfriend in Manchester, England, and was traveling back to London on a train when inspiration struck.
Absolutely true, yeah. I was on the train from Manchester to London, and it came. It just came.
Had something like that ever happened to you before?
Yes, truthfully. I mean, other ideas had just come to me, because I think if you're a writer, and that's what you spend a huge amount of time doing, ideas do come to you. But nothing had ever come so, with such a, I had this, I thought, God, I'd love to write that. And when I got off the train, I went straight home and I started writing.
Then living in London, she kept her story about a boy wizard to herself. Her mother was gravely ill, and then died 6 months after her daughter began writing the Potter story.
Did your mom ever know that you were writing this?
No. It's one of my biggest regrets. She never knew. I never told her.
She had been sick for quite a while. She had battled
10
MS
years.
for 10 years.
Yeah.
How did her departure, her death, affect this book?
Definitely, Mum dying had a profound influence on the books, because
in the first draft, his parents were disposed of really in quite a almost cavalier fashion. I didn't really dwell on it. 6 months in, my mother dies, and I simply can't kill a fictional mother that callously. I'm not saying it wasn't callous, but it wasn't what it became. And I really think from that moment on, death became a central, if not the central theme for the 7 books. You mean death in terms of loss, not just the killing of people, but...
The whole, absolute, the theme of how we react to death, how much we fear it, of course, which is a key part of the books, because Voldemort is someone who will do anything not to die. He's terrified of death, and in many ways, all of my characters are defined by their attitude to death and the possibility of death.
She wrote about Harry at an Edinburgh cafe, with baby Jessica napping by her side. She lived in a small upstairs apartment. Then, after a publisher saw the first 3 chapters of the book and asked to see more, she rushed to finish it.
I was determined to try. I was determined to try, because frankly, my life was such a mess at this point. What was the worst that could happen? Everyone turned me down, big deal.
But the tough times were about to end. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the UK title, was eventually bought by small British publisher Bloomsbury for $4,000. About a year later, in 1997, her agent called to say American publisher Scholastic was bidding for Harry Potter.
He phoned me and said there's an auction going on in New York, and again, I'm so clueless. I thought, why is he telling me about that? He had to be quite specific. An auction for your book. Why would I be telling you about a furniture sale?
So dense.
Well, I always, to be honest, life has battered me around so much in the previous few years that when you start receiving good news, you're quite mistrustful.
It wasn't good news. It was pretty great news. They never offered that kind of money for a children's book, over $100,000.
Unbelievable. It was unbelievable. I started to think, we can buy a house. Now, it was all security for me.
Since then, her financial success has become legendary. Forbes estimated her fortune at more than $1 billion. But publishing 7 long books in such a short time took a toll.
I had said I could produce a novel a year, but the novels were getting longer, and there came Goblet nearly killed me to get it out for the time when they wanted to publish, and that was my fault.
But now her life is a lot less stressful and a lot less lonely. After 9 years as a single mom, by 2001, she had a new man in her life, her husband, Neil Murray. The couple has a son and daughter together. Oh, and by the way, when Joe and Neil got engaged, another train figured in the story, not the Hogwarts Express.
My husband proposed to me on a train.
You probably thought, oh, this is so romantic.
Well, I did. It was the Orient Express. I'd always wanted to go on the Orient Express.
Now she's devoting her time to her family and her favorite causes, such as helping single mothers and finding a cure for multiple sclerosis, the disease that took her mother's life. And now she has a chance to reflect.
Finishing has certainly made me look back a lot. And it is almost incredible to me at times what's happened. And there's certainly moments when I imagine that I've dreamt it all.
With Harry Potter, the final chapter continues.
Hi, I'm sitting here with Susan King. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Flannery, thanks for having me. A few things about myself. Well, I've been publishing books since 1973. I have a total of 40 published books.
Wow, 40 books. So what was your first published book?
My first book I ever published was Carrie and was accepted for publication by Doubleday Company, which let me write full-time.
Now, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
I was born September 21st, 1947 in Portland, Maine. My dad left when I was 2 years old, so it was just my mom, adopted brother David, and I.
And your life now, do you have a family of your own?
I do. My wife is Tabitha, and we have 3 children, Naomi, Rachel, Joe Hill, and Owen Phillip.
Thank you for speaking with me.
Alice, it's good to have you here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about your writing. How many books have you published?
Well, I've written and published 3 novels. My first was Lucky in 1999. Then my most popular novel, which was also made into a movie, was The Lovely Bones, and I published that in 2002. And my most recent was The Almost Moon, and I published that in 2007.
Now, Alice, I understood your younger life has been a little traumatic and that has inspired your works.
That's true. When I was in college, I was attacked and raped.
Well, I have read book reviews and many say you write about this incident because of your fixation on terror.
People may say that because it is true that all 3 of my novels relate to a rape and are dark. But I write for others to enjoy my works, and if it comes from my own incidents, well, then let it.
Very interesting of you to say. On a lighter note, let's discuss your successes.
All right.
The Lovely Bones appears to have led to your success. You won American Bookseller Association Book of the Year Award for Adult Fiction in 2003, and also the Bram Stoker Award for First Novel in 2002.
Yes, this is true.
I'm glad to see that a traumatic experience has not rendered you and instead led you to write 3 chilling yet magnificent novels.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad you were able to speak with me.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, listeners, that was Alice Sebold. We will be back to your favorite interview radio station right after this quick break.